I don't talk about my experience with my PhD program much because I don't think it's an experience anyone will ever have again, if I'm perfectly honest. But someone reached out, who I will remain anonymous just to protect their privacy. They asked, I'm curious how difficult it was as an autistic person with physical disabilities to pursue a PhD. I know I've heard other PhDs describe their dissertations as physically painful. I started my PhD in 2018. I did not know I was autistic. I had already been substance abusing since I was 12, basically. I did not take care of myself for basically my whole life. Like, I was steeped in neglect. 3 years prior, I found this newfound sense of self. I was building one step at a time. I happened to meet the right people while I wasn't taking care of myself. I suffered the consequences of that. But I was so numb and so disassociated and so hell-bent on doing this thing to make something of myself that I did it anyway. Drinking basically no water, living on coffee and whiskey, and just overworking myself to death. Like, if I would have done that forever, I would have died without a doubt. Hence why my work in my at least 2 memoirs and a lot of my early content here was me expressing the level at which I'm so serious when I would say I would have to teach myself how to breathe again at the end of each semester. 2 years into my PhD, COVID-19 started, and my mom died of lung cancer. I was in a different state. I got to live on blood money for the last 2 years of my PhD. So this is to say, I only just around that time started genuinely putting credence into the level at which I had been failed, and I continued to be failed. So my PhD program was my way to therapeutically understand the level of violence, abuse, and neglect that I had endured and continued to endure. And my work is an expression of that. It's me making sense of that. And because I was so used to not taking care of myself and enduring the physical burdens of that life, and then having the horrible but very real privilege of living on blood money for the last 2 years of my PhD and pursuing a project I loved, and then only truly experiencing the embodied horror of odds are good either having a really serious, almost killed me case of food poisoning or having contracted Omicron. The week after finishing my PhD dissertation, did I begin to understand anything that I would associate, not that autism isn't obviously also a physical disability that causes my lifetime of torment, but I was so disassociated from that for the first 30 years of my life that it's if I wasn't, I don't think I would have been able to do it. It's amazing that I did it at all. And I mean that. That it sounds like I'm bragging, but it's a brag that no one should brag about, because it's something that could have easily killed me. It is amazing that I'm alive. And yeah, I hear people with physical disabilities all the time. Any kind of historically intentionally targeted group is gonna have a really hard fucking time getting into a PhD program or pursuing one at all. And I'm always gonna be honest about that. It can be physically painful. It was physically painful for me, but I think despite the horror show, the maelstrom of shit fuck that I did and have lived, it was as easy as it could have been, which is it was still almost impossible. It was almost impossible. Do I have any advice? I have plenty of videos that I've made over years, but I couldn't point you to them. They're probably in my lessons playlist on TikTok. My advice is you need to take account of your life, and if you know that that's what you want to do, you're gonna do it. Okay. But I can't tell you, because of how much of a shit fuck academia especially is now with the resurgence of overt fascism. I can't tell you if it's the one thing that I always hated when I was especially near the end of my PhD and going to be on the job market is hearing people, because even at the time when I was finishing my PhD, there would be alumni that would come to be on panels and be like, this is what the job market's like. But it was literally year 2 of COVID. So they didn't fucking navigate that job market. They have no idea what it's like. My advice is you need to take into consideration whether or not it is worth it for you to get a PhD. And I can't tell you that. I really can't. I wish I could, but it's not realistic for me to know whether or not it is right for you. I know that it's what I needed as a person because that's how my life worked out. And it just so happened to work out in the way that it did, against truly almost all odds, besides my whiteness. And having been born into an economic area because my dad sold out to BP oil company, I was able to live in a place where I had good education growing up. And then despite not giving a single fuck about K through 12 and never being properly accommodated and not being properly diagnosed, still having fallen into this and then rebuilt my sense of self. But like I said, I could easily be dead. Is it possible to study and pursue academia without a formal degree if it becomes unattainable? I'm going to be honest with you, and this is an unpopular opinion. No, it's not. It's not possible. And this isn't to say that people can't have access to information, but it is to say that all graduate degrees are training programs to conduct research, specific types of research. So, I mean, in a perfect world where a formal degree is actually going to provide people skills that they need outside of academia, sure. But we don't live in that world, and I talk about that in my new book. This section is called The Problem TikTok Presents. After completing my PhD and gaining a sizable following on TikTok, I was faced with a problem. People without PhDs were getting so many views and likes. What gives? What did they think they were? Authorities? Experts? Fools, if you ask me then. Me now? Yes and no. In the remainder of this chapter, I will explain how being on TikTok inclined me to reflect. What the environment era reveals about research. As much as I am all for the expansion of legitimacy, authority, and knowledge access, what often is lost in that conversation is learning how to conduct types of research as a collection of skill sets. Most researchers are trained to be specialists and trained to do only some research types. I'm not saying people without formal research training are not capable of learning how to comprehensively research or Google, read, interpret, and make their own claims, but what I am saying is that lay people who read research articles written for topic experts are bound to have misunderstandings. And yes, specialists who read other research specialists misunderstand too. And as I disclose within Chapter 2, that is the double-edged sword of reliance on specialists. Practically zero bachelor's programs even teach folks how to conduct any kind of research beyond beginner-level database use to find peer-reviewed academic journal articles and learning how to cite, quote, summarize work in MLA, APA, Chicago style in a basic sense. These citation skill sets really only matter as much as we want them to. And honestly, as anyone who's read this far into my book can probably tell, I don't fucking care about respectability politics or the ways professionalism and elitism manifest in punctuation and citing practices. In a literal sense, PhD programs are a training process. That's all they are. They give people more often than not, unless they're incredibly privileged and therefore have R1, Research 1 institutions, are allegedly the most prestigious ones, granted more privileged access to mentors, resources, and funding, the opportunity to conduct their first major research project. Because for those who don't know, that's what a dissertation is, a PhD student's first big project. Therefore, by design, having no degree or a PhD is the difference between having had training in conducting big research. Fancy pieces of paper don't make anyone better than anyone. We need to expand who is seen as an authority expert, and you either have training or you don't. With that said, research training and skills are just like anything else. You either have committed time and effort to learn how to hone those skills, or you haven't. This age is full of charismatic people with zero research training, yet good marketing, who gain huge followings either way. Like I've said multiple times over the course of this last 6 years, I do believe that it's necessary we learn from ways authority is breaking down, for better and for worse, in this case, both. I'm just not sure how and where we go to make research training and skills equitable, which is why my first recommendation of this book is that we seriously restructure higher ed. There are countless formal researchers who currently aren't getting paid for their work while people with zero training are paid. Meanwhile, getting a PhD throws many of us $165,000 in debt. So many trained researchers can't afford to pretend we can frivolously provide training for